Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks for checking in. And today we're going to have, I just wanted to sort of have a sort of a wide-ranging, little bit of a philosophical discussion on why people bass fish, what motivates people to bass fish, why a lot of bass fishermen can't get along for some reason, and just sort of give you guys my thoughts on that. I think you guys might find it interesting. I'll be curious to get your comments too. Actually down here at my mom and dad's place, guys, this is the place right here that I spent all my time when I was a little kid. You know, every day I'd get out of school. You know, school's about a mile down the road, and I come down here and build forts, and I'd trap animals in my live trap and let them loose. And then there's a creek down there about quarter mile down the field down there where that's where I learned to fish at, Turkey Creek. And I all the time I'd walk down there. Once I was old enough, mom and dad let me walk down there. And that's where I learned everything about fishing. I started out by just watching minnows in the water. I started out, looking for crawdads, and I moved up to catching black perch, like with a worm. And then I finally got like little Rapala minnows and started catching a few of the bass that lived in Turkey Creek. And that became a huge part of my life. That's where I remember the first time I ever smelled a bass, which is the most unique smell in the world, by the way. I'm probably going to do a video on that at some point. Was there at Turkey Creek on a fish that I caught. And really my entire love for fishing started, here out in nature. And one of the things I want to talk about here today is sort of like the common threads that bind anglers together. And throughout my career, guys, I've fished competitively since the 1980s, as far as, tournaments. And ever since, really the early 1980s, I've fished with different co-anglers, different people you drew out in tournaments, and just people in general. And I have fished with thousands of different people from all walks of life, all over the planet. I fished with people from every philosophical, religious background. I fished with evangelical Christians. I fished with agnostics. I fished with atheists. I fished with Muslims. I fished with Hindus, with Catholics. I fished with straight people, with gay people, with trans people. I fished with, combat veterans in the military. I fished with combat veterans that were prisoners of war. I've fished with people that were on the verge of being homeless. I fished with 2 billionaires. I fished with, people that from every single walk of life that you can imagine, with every range of the human experience. And in doing so, and even more, that's just a few that come off the top of my head, but when you fish with thousands of people, you run into a little bit of everything. And even though there may be, it may seem like there's differences in people, as far as philosophical differences and cultural differences, belief systems and that type of stuff. Guys, we're not that different from each other. I mean, that's one of the things that I can say for sure, probably better than most people, simply because I've fished with so many different people, is that when you strip all the crap off, all the stuff that we've been conditioned to, and we've been, that we've been taught or we've been indoctrinated into, when you strip everything down to the bare level of like being in nature, which fishing offers, everybody is so connected. And one of the things that I can tell you guys, out of all those people I fished with that we've talked about, literally every type of person you can imagine, one of the things, there's a common thread amongst every one of those people out there, is that when you get bit by a bass, when you get a strike, and when you get a fish on, you're transcended into a different realm. It's like you light up, you become alive. You forget about everything. It doesn't matter what you got going on in the world. It doesn't matter what your condition is. When you're throwing that half-ounce spinnerbait out there and you run it by that lay-down tree, and a 5-pounder comes out and clobbers it, for a split second, there's nothing else but that. And there's a camaraderie that goes with that is just that can only be understood by people that love to bass fish. And that's one of the things about, I consider bass anglers a family. I really do, because everyone that bass fishes, everybody that watches this channel for the most part, I mean, you share that love. Everybody that's here shares a love for fishing, or you wouldn't be on this channel probably pretty much. And a lot of people don't get it. If people aren't bit by that bass fishing bug, they don't understand what we're talking about as far as wanting to get that next strike, or wanting to set the hook, and the feel of setting that hook into the fish, and the feel of seeing that fish jump out there. It's something that it's special, and it's magical that we have that opportunity to do so. And one of the things that I think that everybody needs to remember a little bit is that we have just got to get along better as anglers out there. And I don't know what it is, but it's like for the past really 6 or 7 years or so, I have seen such a separation and a disconnect in the sport of fishing like I've never seen before. I mean, as far as guys having different opinions, that guys having strong opinions on certain stuff, we all do. I do like that. And there's a lot of times, people are just so critical of each other. They're critical of each other. They try to form sides or circles, or they try to form enemies or alliances within the sport. And we don't need to be doing that, man. Like I said, there's all you dudes out there that, that can't stand me and hate me because of my live scope stance. I can promise you, if you spent the day in a boat with me and it was just you and I fishing out there, and all the other crap is gone from the world, and we're out there catching a bunch of fish, I guarantee we'd have a good time. We'd get along. That would just meld away. But I think one of the things that we have in our society, and I think a lot of this has been created a lot by the media the last 6 or 7 years, is that there's this I don't say confrontation, but it's almost like this divisiveness. It's like divisiveness sells a little bit out there, and anyway, and this divisiveness is what causes a lot of that, stress and issues we have as tournament anglers. I mean, just like one of the most biggest disappointments I've ever heard in my life is, I used to have a lot of respect for Gerald Swindle as an angler, and I know that a couple months ago he called me an idiot on a podcast for simply voicing my opinion on a rule that Bassmaster had instituted. And there's no reason for bullshit like that. I mean, we have got to start coming together as anglers and realizing that, we're all in this for the same thing. I mean, everybody out there wants to catch fish, and they want the fisheries to be sustainable, and they want to be able to go out and have a fun day on the water. I don't know anyone out there that wants to see fishing go downhill, that wants to see fishing get tougher, that wants to take away the enjoyment that we get from fishing. So from that standpoint out there, I just think a lot of times it's important to sort of reevaluate our positions when we fish out there and get back to what's really important with it. And ultimately, guys, I can tell you right now about bass fishing, which a lot of people, unfortunately, they sort of either have not been taught, or they're apathetic about it, or they're unaware with it. The magical aspect in bass fishing comes from this out here, this connection with nature. If you like to bass fish and you like to be on the water, you have you realize that connection to nature is valuable out there, even though you may be disconnected from it. It's easy to get disconnected from nature when you're sitting in a $100,000 bass boat and you've got $30,000 worth of electronics on there, and you've got this and that, and you're running 70 miles down the boat, 70 miles an hour down the lake. But one of the things I think that's really important is that we never lose that aspect as far as the power and how powerful nature is, because once that we have that awareness and that respect for nature, then we put ourselves in the position to cherish that and want to take care of that, and that is what sustains us, guys. The only reason that we are on this planet, period, and are able to survive on this planet is by being able to live in balance with the natural world. And everything out there. It's like we disconnect ourselves from the natural world because we go to the supermarket and buy our food. You know, we don't get it out here in the woods. I mean, if you and I were out here in the woods and we didn't have anywhere to go to get food, you know, we'd have to hunt, we'd have to forage for wild edibles. And when you do that, when you have to put yourself in a situation like this of surviving in nature, you gain an appreciation to it. Because say, for example, you and I were out here and we hadn't ate for a week. All of a sudden we were able to trap a rabbit or a squirrel, and we're on the verge of starvation. It's like when we take that animal and consume and eat that animal, there's an aspect of gratitude towards that animal for sustaining us and allowing us to live that we've lost. We've lost that as humans, because we go to the store now, we buy a package of wrapped meat in some cellophane, and you don't even connect it to the fact that it was a living, breathing creature, you know, probably a week before that. And bass fishing is one of those things that ties us into that. It's like you get out there in the water and you've got the sights and you've got the sounds and you've got the smells. It's therapeutic to us. It's healing to us. We need that. This is something we've got to have in the human experience, is that connection to nature. And it's just like, that's what I always say. Why do you think people gravitate to parks? You know, people love to go to parks in any big city because even though it's a sterilized, civilized version, it's still some type of a connection to nature. And, you know, from the fishing standpoint, guys, never overlook that. Never, you know, forget or fail to appreciate how powerful nature is out there. The main thing I want to do, like I said, I just wanted to, you know, do this video, just sort of a wide-ranging thing, talking about, you know, how important fishing is to all of us. Like, we're all on the same side. We need to quit arguing about stuff so much and just enjoy what we have and really work to protect it. So we'll talk to you guys later. See ya.